4 of my faith journey. If you haven't seen parts 1 through 3, you might want to stop the video here and go back and watch parts 1 through 3 to keep them chronological, and it'll make more sense to you. If you're coming back for part 4, welcome. I think where I left off, my husband had begun as a student at Gordon College as a 28-year-old man, as a physical education major. We had 3 small children under 5, with the oldest about ready to start kindergarten. We had moved into a beautiful home that the Lord provided for us. We had no money to speak of. We had several $100s coming in each month, kind of regular, but nowhere near what we would need to live on. And we moved out from upstate New York to Massachusetts on faith, because we felt for sure that God had called us to do that. Now here, I would like to talk a little bit about the difference between faith and presumption. I struggled with that for a while. Like, I would read a scripture and I'd say, well, if God said he would do this, then I'm going to just do this and expect him to do what he said. And to me, that's kind of presumption. That's kind of like an entitlement. And faith goes a lot deeper. Faith is like where I mentioned the Rama of God's word. It's kind of like when God speaks to your heart through his word, and you are inspired to take a step of faith because he's leading you in that direction. It's a whole lot different than presuming what you read is something you should do. I hope that helps a little. I can only tell you how I have experienced it in my life. And faith to me, like when I sense God's leading, I don't know how it is for other people, but it usually has to do with a still small voice, almost like an independent thought that is foreign to something I would do, and is usually altruistic, and challenging, and takes a lot of faith to do what I feel I'm being asked to do. Maybe that sounds crazy, but that's how I experience it in my life. So here we were out in Massachusetts, moved into this lovely home, and we weren't sure how we were still going to make ends meet. We had a lot of needs, but we were very excited and encouraged by the miracles that God had already done for us to get us there, to get us to that point. So again, baby steps of faith. We had to keep stepping and asking the Lord to provide. He does like us to depend on him. He does like us to take the step of faith and trust that he will. Not expect so much, but trust that he will fulfill his promise to take care of us. And I also believe that our walk, good or bad, can influence our communication with the Lord. You know, you've heard that phrase, your prayers might not get past the ceiling. Well, I think you really grease the airways for your prayers when you're doing your best to rely on God to help you walk the walk, and you're addressing your shortcomings and asking for help to get beyond them. And the Lord brings to mind those things that you need to work on. And it's a bittersweet experience. Bitter because you don't like it, but sweet because usually you're being humbled enough that you're at the feet of Jesus. And whenever you're at the feet of Jesus, you find grace and you find faith and you find inspiration to continue. So, how did the Lord provide for us while we were at college? Many, many times in many different ways. Each week it was a new story, because each week we were living on faith. And for instance, there wasn't ever quite enough groceries. Now, I have to tell you, while we were at college, I say we, but it was my husband who was going. While he was at college and he was working part-time cleaning houses, trying to make ends meet, I did a little babysitting, trying to bring some money in. But that was the only time in our lives when we did agree to take food stamps, because we felt this was a temporary position we were in, that we were trying to better ourselves for him getting a college education. And we also didn't have any insurance, so we did sign the kids up for a free medical program where they could get their basic checkups and stuff. So that was the only time that we did sign up for any kind of government aid. And I still don't feel bad about that because it was a temporary thing and we knew it. And it was for good reason. So we did have some of that. We did have some food stamps. It wasn't definitely not a full week of groceries. I don't know if it was like $48 a week or something like that. It was hard to make it stretch. And there were times when the groceries ran out long before the month did. And those days we would have to pray a lot for the groceries to come in. And I remember this one time when things had gotten really, really tight. There was no money and there were no groceries. And we sat down together at the table and we prayed and we asked the Lord, please provide the groceries for our family. And that night there was a knock on the door, and standing there was a man from our church who lived up the street, and he said, my freezer just went on the blink. I know I've got more in there than I need anyway. Could I unload some of it here for you guys to use? And he brought in meats and vegetables and even some bread I think he'd had in the freezer. And that was the very day we had prayed for it. Wonderful, wonderful answer to prayer, and we rejoiced and we hugged him and we told him that we had just that day prayed for groceries, and he got all teary because he had no idea, and he was a faithful man, and so he was so thankful to be used of God in that way. Another time, another week, probably in another month, end of the month, same type of thing, getting down to the nitty-gritty, and had very little food. We ran out of some proteins, and we prayed again, Lord, please provide some food for our family. Again, I got a knock on the door, and standing there was a woman in our church, a single lady who was an artist, and she didn't have a lot on her own. She was needy many times herself, but she was friends with the fishermen in Gloucester. Now, Gloucester, as you may know, is a fishing village. You know, the Gloucester fishermen, you've heard of that? Well, she was friends with the fishermen down on the docks, and many times when things got tight for her, she'd go down and talk to them, and they would give her fish from their ships, fresh fish. And today they had given her so much she couldn't possibly use it all. So she came to our house and she shared the fish with us. And I mean, you couldn't get any fresher than that. It was wonderful. Now, it took $15 a week in gas for my husband to run his car back and forth to college and the different errands we needed to do. And this one week, we only had $5 in the wallet. That was it. And we had to put gas in the car. So we pulled up to the pump. I remember it was in cold winter time, so the windows were up. And we were praying over this money, and we were saying, Lord, just like you made the oil last in the Bible, please let this $5 last enough. Let the gas bought with this $5 last enough to get us through the week. And the attendant for the gas comes up, and Mick rolls his window down. He just says, just $5, please. And the guy said, okay. And Mick rolls the window back up. And we're praying more over this money. You know, just saying, Lord, please let us get by on the fumes. Something, let this last, or bring more money in when we need it to get more gas. Well, we talked a little bit, and Mick turned around, looked at the pump, and it was saying $14.80, $14.90, and he yells, wait, stop. And the guy stops it, and it was right on $15. And Mick said, I told you just $5. And the guy says, oh, my mistake. Don't worry about it. And we gave him the $5, and off we went. Now, Mick went back later. It wasn't that week, and it wasn't the next week. It might have been a few weeks later when he had enough money. He went back and he paid the difference. But the Lord provided. Now, one semester, Mick was $1,000 short on coming up with what he needed to pay all his tuition and get it going. And we started praying about that, and we didn't know quite what to do. And the time was getting very, very short as to when he had to have all this money in. Well, as usual, right in the nick of time, we got a gift in the mail. And we opened the envelope, and it was from my friend Peggy, the one I mentioned had witnessed to me in the very beginning. And Peggy told me, Susie, I sold my house and I got another house. And this $1,000 represents a tithe that I'd like to give to you and Mickey for your schooling. And it was just days before this extra $1,000 was due. Another miracle. Another time I started feeling, I wasn't always a pillar of faith. There were times when things got tough, or I got a little depressed, or the kids were challenging me. And I got a little teary this one time because my baby, who was about 1.5 years old then, didn't have shoes to fit. She had outgrown her shoes. And I had gone to the local discount store looking for a cheap pair of canvas sneakers, and I couldn't find any that I could buy. I didn't have enough dollars. And I think they were like $8, and I didn't even have $8 to spend on these sneakers. So I went home and I cried. I did. I cried and I said, Lord, I can't even get my baby shoes. Please, please help me. And later that afternoon, I had a girlfriend in church. I walked up the street, and she was a hairdresser and did hair from her home. And we sat and we were talking. And I said to her, no, I didn't say anything to her. I didn't say anything to her. We were just talking. And she said to me, Courtney outgrew these shoes. Could you use them? And she plopped down the cutest pair of canvas sneakers. I remember they said 1, 2, 3 and ABC on them, and they were blue and red, as cute as can be. And I started bawling. And I just started crying right there at her table. And she, what? And I told her, I said, Susan, just this morning I prayed and asked God to give my baby shoes. And he did. So these little things, but they're so encouraging. So encouraging. Now, we did not plan on having more children while we were in Gloucester at school because we were struggling so hard. And we thought we were being very sensible about that. But as can happen sometimes, I started realizing that I might be expecting again, and I was getting quite stressed about it because things were tough and we didn't have insurance. And how in the world would I be able to do this if we had no money for a new baby? So I thought, well, I better get myself to a doctor, because whether I am or whether I'm not knowing is driving me more crazy than knowing. If I know either way, I'll just deal with it. So I went and saw an OB/GYN, and he did confirm that, yes, I was expecting another baby. And after he confirmed it, he said, you have another consideration. You can also consider whether or not to continue the pregnancy. And I said to him, oh, that's not a consideration. I could never do anything but continue the pregnancy. It's out of the question to do anything else. And he patted my knee and he said, well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. But something nagged at me and told me, if this doctor doesn't care whether my baby lives or dies, then should he be my doctor? And now I think back and I wonder, well, maybe he was under law obligated to at least say that. That could be it. I don't know. But I changed doctors anyway. And I'm not going to go into all that, but the Lord did provide. And I was able to go to the hospital and have my baby, and everything was taken care of. And it was an oops, but she was a blessing to us, and she was also a real challenge to us. And I may get into that when I talk about raising the kids in a future video.